Galadriel.
Rings of Power Season 2, considered the most expensive show ever made. It was hotly anticipated by everyone, yours truly included. Well, so far, the return on their money is not great. But the team is moving forward with the stories despite the backlash. And before I watch the second season, I want to talk about one thing. Why does everyone hate the Rings of Power so much? The first is the budget. So season 1 was $465 million, which was more than the original Lord of the Rings trilogy at $436 million adjusted for inflation. I read some articles that the whole show would be more than $1 billion. Okay, so to be honest, budgets in TV or film productions are a funny thing. They're usually made up as a clever accounting trick to write off some taxes or even not to pay royalties. But there's also an issue of rights to Lord of the Rings, which apparently cost Amazon $250 million. So it's not just the production budget we talk about. Nevertheless, hearing these huge numbers did not have desired effect, right? And many people mocked the show for it even before it came out. Even I raised my eyebrows, thinking that rather than focusing on the story, they want to bribe us with visual effects. So I don't know, maybe they should have kept it under wraps, but people talked about, like, we're talking about it still. So maybe it worked, maybe it was a marketing trick. The more serious aspect that gathers the negativity is the actual story. So in February 2022, the showrunners Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne revealed that Amazon has rights to The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and the appendices, not the Silmarillion or Unfinished Tales. Now, I think this limitation stems from the rights Tolkien sold in the 1970s or something. We already had the Lord of the Rings trilogy and, for better or worse, the Hobbit trilogy, so they had to come up with something new. And oh my dear, they did. There are many threads and articles on how much they invented or changed. From this Reddit thread, and I'm not gonna go through all of it because there is a lot. For example, we learn that in the books only one Durin is alive at one time. We have a father and son in the show.
Forever am I with you, my son.
They pushed all significant Second Age events into a shorter time frame, as in the books it lasts thousands of years. Galadriel's character was changed, so she goes on various quests in the show and she's already married in the books. The Rings of Power do not yet exist in the show, but in the canon, Sauron already built his Master Ring over 1,500 years before the show's timeline. Now, these are just a few, but because the writers could only use appendices, they used creative writing to fill the gaps. And more die-hard fans, well, they're not happy with this. Check the Reddit thread I showed you, there's a ton of stuff mentioned there by the fans. And to me, it's a valid point. But when I watch any adaptation, I know there will be changes, and as long as the story keeps me involved, I don't mind it. It's never going to be word for word with the source material. And to make a point, look at the interview with the Vampire series. They changed a lot, and it absolutely works. So this leads me to another widely discussed point: unlikable characters. Galadriel gets the most negative feedback. She's supposed to be imperfect, but super powerful. She also gets into fights with pretty much everyone, which is kind of annoying, and just her overall attitude can be annoying.
There are many ways to kill an orc. Come at me. We will see who can score flesh.
Theo, Bronwyn's son, is annoying, right? There's nothing likable about him, and I still don't know why I should care about this random kid. Hopefully, Season 2 will expand on this. Bronwyn is another overpowered character in the show that people dislike. Just in general, elves and men of Númenóreans, are kinda weak and silly looking, especially when compared to the original trilogy, where they represented nobility, power, and strength. It's not actors' fault. Most of it is due to bad writing and focus on visual spectacles. Although, I don't know who greenlighted the horse riding slow-mo scene, something out of Zack Snyder's universe, seriously. Characters just fight with each other all the time, like this silly bickering type of stuff.
After all you have endured, it is only natural to feel conflicted.
Conflicted?
The Harfoots chant, "No one walks alone," and then they abandon their vulnerable members.
Come on now, Grove, not gonna migrate to us. Might help us move faster if you sang us your mom's walking song.
Yeah, go on, Pops, give us a warble.
Galadriel, she's a bit of a bully, overpowered.
I wouldn't advise that. I can't very well let her leave.
Characters, they're just escaping danger. Now, I agree with some of these points raised, but also disagree with others. Because things like plot devices, false progressions, or unconvincing character actions are annoying, but they happen in pretty much all movies or series, and it's easy to nitpick for us and moan about it, but honestly, it doesn't really bother me if the story is good. And that's the crux of the problem. The writing, Galadriel, Harfoot, Numenor, and all the others suffer from some tedious writing. Like, it's just a bit boring, you know, the whole lot. There's a lack of build-up, consequences, and character development. Things just kinda happen. They look nice, that's about it, really. But look, it's not like I completely dislike the show. And good things about it, too. It looks absolutely stunning, especially with the different environments that we get to see. I love the soundtrack by Bear McCreary, especially the Stranger theme. Some of the characters are really good, like Ada, one of the first orcs, or Uruks. You know, he was created by Morgoth. He just wants to protect his people.
I am no god. At least.
Harfoots, and I know I criticized them a few minutes ago, but I think it's a great description of a light-hearted race, like the Hobbits, and it just makes the show feel authentic as the Lord of the Rings show. And of course, dwarves, you know, showing Khazad Dûm before its demise. Interesting dwarven characters that play a larger part in the show. They're not just a comic relief like in a Hobbit. And creating a mystery of the stranger and Sauron, I think, was really well done too. Amazon says that the show was a success, premiering with 25 million viewers and breaking records for Amazon Prime Video. By the end of its 8th episode first season, it was deemed Amazon Studios' most watched show ever, with 100 million viewers globally and 24 billion minutes streamed. Amazon Studios CEO remains positive about the show's performance and potential. Head of Global TV for Amazon Studios says the financial bet of the Rings of Power has more than paid off. At the same time, in the US, only 37% of viewers completed the series. Apparently, internationally, the completion rate was about 45%. Industry standards consider 50% completion rate to be solid. And of course, we don't have the official Amazon numbers from the suits from the producers, so we don't know if they're posturing or keeping a straight and happy face about it. But given all of this, yeah, is the hate justified? Look, starting a show based on a period in which they don't have full TV rights is kinda mad. Publishing how much they paid for it and expecting praise was another bad move, in my view. Going against the hardcore fans is very risky. Lord of the Rings has many of them, and like with Star Wars, they're very vocal about the changes and the plot. On the other hand, they had to compress the timeline to make it work. It's also the first season, so we didn't see enough of the characters of the story yet. Season 1 was to set up the world, and that's why it kind of dragged on a little bit. But I think the hate grew out of proportion. The internet and social media is partly to blame for it, as it amplifies the most controversial takes, the most vocal critics and the memes. I'm sure if we had it back when The Lord of the Rings came out, it would be the same. Fellowship of the Ring came out in 2001. I just turned 14. Now at that time I played lots of Magic the Gathering with my mates, as well as tabletops, D&D and others. We were well into fantasy. I vividly remember when we walked out of the cinema after watching Fellowship, and for a while we just walked. We didn't talk, we didn't speak to each other. We didn't know what to say. The movie, it was everything we've ever wanted. It was everything we could have asked for. And I don't think I felt like this since then. It was magical, you know? I don't think the feeling can ever be replicated. The innocence of youth. But after Two Towers came out, we went to a fantasy convention in my city, and I remember attending a few talks about the movies where all the nerds discussed the changes, and they were outraged that when Gandalf brings help to Helm's Deep with the horses and they all charge, it'd be impossible. It'd be impossible because of the steepness of the hill. And there was like a whole hour-long discussion about it. Now back then, this type of discourse was limited to smelly nerd conventions and some obscure forums. Today, it is much more visible. So look, even if the Rings of Power series ends up being terrible, it doesn't negate the books or the original trilogy, and in my opinion, The Hobbit was atrocious, and I couldn't even finish all of it. And remember the high frame rate Jackson tried with it? God, that was awful. It was some awful stuff. Now, more Tolkien stories are coming. The Lord of the Rings, the War of the Rohirrim is on the way, as well as the new movie focusing on Gollum. And you know what? I'm up for it. Because what about enjoying the stories we love so much and appreciating the fact we get to see them reimagined again? Is Rings of Power the best thing ever made? No. But is it the worst? Definitely not. And I'm hopeful that the second season will deliver a few hours of good, old-fashioned fantasy entertainment. That's all I ever wanted. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.